Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. Exciting announcement for all of my listeners. I've officially opened my exclusive group, the ProjectME Passive Income Posse, to the public. This group is by application only, so we can keep the group high vibe and spend our time, energy, and expertise only helping those of you who truly want massive success and impact. You get live weekly trainings from me, special guest coaches, and direct access to me and my business partner for all of your questions. To learn more and apply, go to projectmewithtiffany.com, click on Work With Me, and select ProjectME Posse. And of course, any questions, feel free to DM me at ProjectMeWithTiffany. Welcome to the Posse and podcast, ProjectME with Tiffany Carter. I'm your host, Tiffany, and today you're going to get a dose of reality, practicality, and some serious strategic steps that you guys need to take in your business. Whether it is you're just starting out, you're already in the mix, maybe you're making a lot of money. It really doesn't matter where you're at. You're going to get something important out of this episode, and I find it like it's such an unsexy topic to talk about legal stuff. Okay, I get it. It sounds boring, whatnot. But let me tell you, the shit ain't boring when you make mistakes like I've made. And I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars that I didn't have in order to unravel stuff that I could have protected in the beginning. So you guys know that my entire goal, in paying it forward is to be the coach, the mentor, the person to you guys that I didn't have. So I want to make sure I always tell you the things that you can avoid these pitfalls, or at least navigate them better than I did, so you can make more money much faster and much easier and not lose it, which we all know I've done all those things. So today I brought on a licensed attorney. She's licensed in the state of California. She's been practicing over 7 years. Her name's Nicole Oden. She has her own firm, and she has an online legal business helping other online entrepreneurs protect their brand, their business, their assets, and all the things. So welcome, Nicole.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So I'm really eager to have everyone have a perspective shift on the whole legal thing. Because it sounds like most people go, oh my God, like if you have a lawyer, like you're like big time, right? Like celebrities have lawyers, like Google, Amazon, they have lawyers, but like little old me who has like, a private coaching business or whatever, like why would I need a lawyer? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah. So that thought process is actually what created my online business, helping other online entrepreneurs, because I think the mindset really is that legal is overwhelming. It's expensive. It's complicated, and let's face it, it's not the sexy side of being a business owner. Nobody wants to make sure that they're getting their legal ducks in a row. They'd rather focus on their website and their clients and all the shiny things. And I get it, but legal is also one of the most important foundational pieces for your business if you're going to build a sustainable business. And that's because if you haven't thought through these things and made sure that you kind of have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, all it really takes is one pissed off client to kind of cause the whole house of cards to crumble. So I like to tell people that you started your business from a place of service. Most of us do. We have something that we're passionate about. It's our zone of genius, and we want to share that with the world. And that's great. So you really need to kind of reframe your way of thinking and look at legal as a way to get to self-care for your business. We all know, and we've heard this idea of self-care for yourself, and it involves setting boundaries. And that's exactly what legal is. You're setting boundaries for your business to make sure that you are protected, that you are clear in terms of expectations, and that you can grow and flourish and become the person and the business that you kind of set out to be. So I just always try and tell people to kind of reframe your thinking. It doesn't have to be as scary and overwhelming as people think it is. As long as you get that advice early on and kind of start to walk through the process, I think that you're setting yourself up for success.
What would you say is like the key area, specifically for people who have like a private coaching element to their online business? What would you say is a like key specific area that you see people neglecting and it ends up biting them in the ass?
Not having a written contract. Like that, it sounds so simple, but so many people in the online space have these conversations with their potential clients in their DMs, or they'll hop on a Zoom connection call and they start chatting and, they think, okay, we're in a good place. I'm just going to send you a PayPal invoice. You pay it and let's start our coaching. Look, the first step to being a business owner is to making money. That's all well and good. But what is going to govern that relationship once you're going? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if you have this client that you thought was your quote unquote dream client and they end up being a nightmare? You never know. So having everything clearly written in a contract that you can fall back on that acts as the guidepost for your relationship, it's just key to your entire coaching business in terms of making sure you're paid, in terms of making sure that the expectations are out there for your clients. It's just, that's the first step. You need to make sure if you are going to open a coaching business, get a client agreement in place to protect yourself and your business.
And the other way around, you guys go to apply to work with me and you're accepted, whether it's me or it's another business coach. If the business coach you're working with, whatever kind of coach it is, doesn't have an agreement, you need to ask for one. And if they don't automatically mention it or provide it, I'm telling you right now, that's a red flag. That's really weird to me.
Yeah, run. I always tell people to run. It's just not a good sign of professionalism. And this is one thing that I like to remind my clients is that legal also adds, look, at the beginning of the show, you said you think it's these big companies, these people that have all the money. But what do you think when you think about these big companies? You think they're professional. You think they've made it. You think they do have all this money. So you as a consumer, as a client, if you're signing up with somebody and they've got a contract that clearly outlines what payments you're supposed to make, when you're supposed to make them, is there any refund policy? What happens if you guys have a dispute? Is there a way to terminate the contract? Are you guys arbitrating? Are you guys going to court? You need to know those things at the outset. And when you do know those things, you just look at that relationship from a whole different lens. It appears so much more professional, so much more thought out, and it actually improves your experience as a consumer and as a client. So it goes both ways.
What is your opinion about people going, okay, like, girl, I've like not made $1 yet. I'm hustling hard over here. Can't I just go on Google and type in like free coaching agreement? Because I don't have money. I don't have much room left on my credit card. So can't that do for now? Make do?
Okay. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to give my standard disclaimer before we go any further. So everything we're going to chat about today is just legal education and information. It is not legal advice, and it doesn't form an attorney-client relationship between us. You do want to make sure you chat with an attorney in your local area to make sure that you are taking the right steps for you and your business. If you take nothing else away from our chat today, do not Google your legal. Do not rely on, we Google everything from our health conditions.
Totally.
Do not rely on Google because there are so many reasons that it can go so terribly wrong for you. The first being somebody else's contract could be copyrighted material. And copyright rights in the United States are an opt-out system, meaning that they apply from the date of creation. So if somebody posts something on the internet, it doesn't mean that it is free for you to use. It just doesn't. Just because you Google it and you find it, it does not mean that you can use it. And so if you start using that or posting it or sharing it, you are opening yourself up to a lawsuit, like period, end of story. You could be sued, and copyright infringement is no joke. You just don't want to mess with it. It becomes super expensive, and you're going to end up paying more in attorney's fees to defend yourself than you would have paid to get the dang contract to begin with. The second thing is if you Google it, you have no idea if it is going to address everything you need it to address. You don't know if there's provisions in there that help you or hurt you, and you don't know if it includes everything that you need it to include. So just don't do it. If you're going to invest money anywhere, get a solid client agreement from the outset, period, end of story.
So what about people though, who really don't have, like, there isn't room like on their credit card, like they're really up against it. What should they do? Like, I know that you offer, like, on your Instagram at Nicole Sherry Oden, by the way, Oden. I know that you do offer something called, like, I believe they're called like legal templates. Is that something someone can start there, or?
Yeah. So this is when I said at the beginning that kind of mindset about legal started my online business. I'm going to take a step back and I can kind of forward to exactly what legal templates are. So when I kind of got into the online space, I was actually a Beachbody coach. And so I had really suffered with postpartum anxiety after having my daughter. It was a struggle, and it actually led to me leaving my old firm. I call it becoming an accidental entrepreneur because it really propelled me to say, fuck this, I'm going to go start my own thing. And so I started my own firm. I started trying to find ways to kind of find that elusive unicorn work-life balance. And so I stumbled into that Beachbody scenario, and I will forever be grateful because it exposed me to the online space and personal development. And I don't think I would have found it otherwise. But while I was like trying to feel out this whole coaching thing in the online space, I would literally have people messaging me who had businesses that found I was an attorney and just said, like, I don't even care about this Beachbody stuff. Like, what can you do to help me get my business protected? And when I would respond and say, get an attorney in your area to make sure you're like legit, you want to make sure you're covered. That was the response. It's too expensive. It's too overwhelming. I don't want to deal with it. What can I do? And it was like that light bulb moment that they say entrepreneurs have. What can I do that makes legal much more affordable and accessible for these people, just so they can get their bare bones in place to make sure that their lives are covered, their butts are covered. And so this whole idea of legal templates was born. So what I did is, I am an attorney. So I created these attorney drafted templates that you can basically customize for your online business. So rather than going to spend, thousands of dollars for custom contracts and policies, because look, my billable rate is $450, guys. So if it takes me a couple of hours to draft a custom contract or policy, it adds up quickly. It's a much more kind of accessible way for you to get legal in place to use for your business. And look, as you grow and you scale, you can modify it. And you can finally kind of reach out and have somebody draft those contracts as you're growing. I do always recommend you have an attorney review the contract once it's done, because you want to make sure that it covers what you need it to cover. But it just makes it a little bit less scary and overwhelming. It's so much more approachable because you have it and you can get in there and manipulate it. And there are just bare bones things you need to know as a business owner, period, end of story, because you're held to a standard and you have to know things as a business owner. Whether or not you claim ignorance, it doesn't matter. It's not a defense.
You guys, one of the biggest, first off, you guys have no idea. I was in a 2 different trials for over 10 years, and I can talk about it now because it's over, but I actually couldn't even start my company now, ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, until that was truly, truly done. That was also part of why it took me so long, is there was an actual legal reason, because anything I said publicly would have been used against me. But I say this for a reason, is I learned, obviously, I'm literally $1 million in legal bills. I'm not joking. $1 million. And what I learned from that $1 million education are several things, but one is ignorance is not a defense. You can't claim, like, you can't be the cute little, Beachbody girl or network marketing girl. No offense, you guys, but like, you can't go, oh my God, like no one ever taught me this. Like, I didn't go to college. I have no idea. Nope. Doesn't work. Does not work. Imagine, and I had someone in my trial who was claiming like ignorance, and it's like, and we were thrilled by it. And I was like, because I was pissed because he was really pulling it off, and my shark of an attorney is like, oh, this is great because this shit never works. So you guys, you can't use that. It's not like when a cop pulls you over and you're speeding and you're like, but officer, like, I have really bad period cramps, or like, and it might work. Not in the court of law will that work, right?
No, the judge is just going to roll their eyes at you, especially if you have a female judge. They don't want to hear that shit.
So when you say legal templates, does this mean someone, and I'm like not quoting your prices, but is it kind of like someone can pay like $250 or something for a template versus it costing them like $1,500 to $2,000? Is that part of the difference?
Yeah. So, I mean, my cheapest template right now is my testimonial release. And right now on my website, that's $27. So,
Oh, wow.
And it goes all the way up to, yeah. And it goes all the way up to, I've got like a $600 bundle that basically is, if you're starting a coaching business, it's all of the basic contracts that you will need to start a coaching business. So everything from your client agreement, a group coaching agreement, the privacy policy for your website, which is legally required, guys, terms and conditions for your website, all those very basic things that you just want to make sure you have in place.
Now, I actually have that written down as a note to ask you. So everyone who's listening, either already has like their basic website or a blog or varying different stages of business, right? Or those of you guys listening who are, dreaming up your business right now, one of the first things you think about is I need to be official and have a website. I don't give a shit if you're on day one and not made $1, or you're, 11 years in like me and you're at 7 figures. You have to have, correct, the privacy policy and terms and conditions. Is that correct?
Well, so the privacy policy is legally required. California was the first state in the U.S. to enact legislation that actually made it legally required back in 2004, I believe. And it's gone through a couple iterations since then. We actually have new legislation coming out in 2020 that kind of stepped it up in terms of what you have to include in your privacy policy, depending on the size of your business. But then when the General Data Protection Regulation rolled around in May of 2018, it basically says you have to have a privacy policy, period, no matter where you're located, because it applies to businesses that basically do business with people who are in the EU or the UK, and they really don't give a shit like where you are. You can be held to fines. There is a way to bring a suit if you're a single person, not just a regulatory agency. There's a bunch of exposure. And so just getting that up on your website and walking through exactly what you do with the information, what you collect, and actually having people affirmatively agree to that policy at the time that you collect that personal information is key, because that affirmative agreement is actually one of the requirements under GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. So that's is required.
That's like where you see, it's like, you guys, I'm sure you've bought things, or even on iTunes, you'll see that when they do an update and you actually have to like click on the box saying, I have read and agreed to these, this privacy policy or these terms and conditions. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So it's called a click wrap in internet law. So it basically means you have to click something to show your agreement, because just slapping it up in your website's footer, which is called a browse wrap in internet law, in case you're wondering, it doesn't do anything. It's just like, it's up there. Okay. It is what it is. Terms and conditions for your website are actually not legally required.
Oh, interesting.
But they are the first place that the court looks if an issue arises with your website users. So I always say, better to protect yourself and have your website users affirmatively agree to your terms and conditions as well, and your terms of use if they're purchasing some sort of downloadable product or an e-course or membership, whatever it is in your online business, because then you're creating an enforceable contract. Again, if you just slap it up in your website's footer and call it a day, that's not an enforceable contract. Like, who's really going to go click on your footer and read them? We're so used to seeing them now in our digital age. It doesn't mean shit. So just make sure you're linking them, having people agree to them, and keep records of that agreement with whatever software you use on your website.
So I know what most of you guys do, so it's okay. But this is also why I have Nicole on today. So what most of you guys do is you go and copy and paste someone else's privacy policy. Maybe, you tweak some things, or you copy their terms and conditions and you tweak some things or not. And you use that because it's like, oh my God, like you maybe didn't realize how important it is, or you did not see the value or the importance of paying an attorney. So do you have templates for this, so it's not going to cost somebody, thousands of dollars to create this?
I do. So I have a privacy policy template. I have a terms and conditions template. And I also have a terms of use template for your downloadable or e-course or membership. And I have them in bundles too. So they're much more affordable as individual templates. They're even more affordable as a bundle, so you can get them all together. And it's just a good way for you to make sure that you are covering your buns and you're not copying and pasting Becky's privacy policy, who lives in Utah when you live in Texas, and everything's going to be wonky because you don't know what provisions to read and what to change. So the policy or the templates will walk you through exactly what to change, the options that you need to include, because it's annotated with comments that you can follow along, and then you have it going forward and you know what to modify if anything changes.
Are your templates only good for people whose businesses reside in the state of California?
Yeah. So I like to say that they are US templates. They basically comply with US law, but I always say no matter what, you want to have another attorney review the template that is in your local jurisdiction. Period. End of story. It doesn't matter where you're buying the template from, what business online, LegalZoom, whoever you go with. It's always best to have an attorney that you can sit down, talk to face about your business particulars, and make sure everything is in there that's supposed to be. So legal templates are a good, cheaper option to make sure you're getting bare bones in place. I'm not saying you're never going to need an attorney, guys. And I know that sucks. And I know people like to think, oh, I've got a legal template, I don't need an attorney ever again. You guys, as long as you're a business owner at some point, are going to need an attorney. And I always recommend doing an annual kind of check-in with a small business attorney just to see, because businesses grow, things change, laws change, and that is your obligation as a business owner, period.
Yeah, I mean, I know we see so much, so much stuff online, and it's like, be a boss babe, and, girl boss life, and all this, fun and frilly stuff, or the people who promote the bullshit, like make $100,000 in 30 days like I did, which, if go back to the old adage of if it sounds too good to be true, it is. That was a side note, guys, but had to say it. So here's the thing. This isn't sexy. This is very adulty. But last time I checked, being a business owner, you have a duty, you have a responsibility. And when you are coaching people, you have an actual legal exchange responsibility with that other person to give them what they agreed that they want from you in exchange for a certain dollar amount. Like, this is serious business. So you putting your head in the sand and being an avoider or whatever, I'm telling you, it'll bite you in your ass big time. I did not have an attorney. Okay. And with my first business, which still exists. And it's in a heavily regulated sector: health, medical, pharmaceutical. That's almost as highly regulated as financial. Okay. And I didn't, for the same reasons, like so many of the people you talk to, Nicole, or you guys listening. It's like, Jesus, like I'd have to have like $20,000 to do this. Like I freaking don't have that. And plus, like, who's really going to like sue me? I'm like a nobody. It's not just for people suing you. What became my issue and why I had to get an attorney like after the fact is I had corporations. I had one go bankrupt where I had a major outstanding balance, like $65,000. So I didn't have money, and I didn't have a contract. I mean, I did, like, the business deals in my other company are huge, and I was doing them without contracts. Crazy that I didn't know any better. Like, I don't put myself down for it. There wasn't a me. I didn't have a coach. That wasn't a thing. There weren't coaches. There was like Tony Robbins on CD. You know what I mean? There wasn't like a Nicole who's like getting on Instagram. There wasn't Instagram. Like, I didn't have anything. But it leads me to the next thing I want to ask you is when someone isn't fulfilling payment. So you have coached them. I keep using coaching because most people have a coaching element, whether it's group, mastermind, or private. But let's say like you're a month in and there's 3 months, and I'm just going to throw out a dollar amount. Let's say it's $5,000 a month, and they've paid you the first month, but now the second month goes by and they've not paid you. If you don't have a contract in place, Nicole, can you even go after them for that money?
Yeah. So I'm going to give the attorney answer and say it depends. So, okay. There are situations where oral contracts are enforceable, but it becomes a hot mess in the courtroom trying to do this whole he said, she said dance and show there was a meeting of the minds and what was agreed to and what was due when and who was supposed to do what. And you're recreating your Facebook message trail and your text messages, and it just becomes a nightmare. So have a written contract, like period. I'm going to say that 20 times. Have a written contract, have a written contract. That is the place to start, because if you have a situation where somebody comes back and doesn't pay, you can visit your contract, look at your payment provision, look at your late payment provision. You can look at your dispute resolution provision in terms of what happens if you guys have this song and dance about payment and it doesn't, come through. I always say the first step is to send what I call a friendly collection letter, because we have to remember that our clients are humans and late payments happen. And sometimes, it just takes like a friendly reminder. Hey, like you missed your payment this month. And then there are some shithead clients that just don't pay. So then you can step it up a notch. And that's when you go talk with a small business attorney and say, hey, they're not paying. Here's my contract. Explain the situation. They'll be able to put a collection letter on their letterhead. And sometimes that's what it takes. They see an attorney is involved and legal proceedings could follow. Oh shit, I need to pay my contract because I don't want to go down this road.
Right.
Then you get to the really difficult situations where they still see that attorney letter and they still don't want to pay. And then it is kind of like a case by case decision. What's outstanding? Do you have an arbitration provision? Do you have a court intervention provision in terms of you're going to either small claims or superior court, depending on the amount of the contract? That's dictated state by state in terms of what amount falls into small claims, which most small claims cases you can handle on your own. You can just chat with an attorney and they can walk you through the process. The superior court process becomes a whole other game. But it's kind of case by case in terms of what's at risk, who the client is, kind of what's happened so that you can revisit it. But bottom line, you can protect yourself by having that contract in place. Because if you have nothing in place, it's an uphill battle. It really is.
And you guys, it's all about numbers. Like, we're not trying to be negative and say it's inevitable, but it is as you grow. It's like my coach who's worth $100 million said to me, and this was several years ago, because he would we have a very trusting relationship also with a non-disclosure agreement. So, he can tell me stuff, I can tell him, and it's not going to go anywhere. And if either of us shared it, we'd each be sued for $1 million. And no, I'm not joking. And people even the cleaning lady for the Kardashians has a non-disclosure. This is how this shit works, you guys. Okay. What's up, Calabasas? So, my point in saying it is he was told me, he'd casually mentioned oh, I've got to go to this area or this city for a lawsuit here. And I've got to go to Reno for this lawsuit here. And I was like, Jesus, how many lawsuits do you have? And he said, when you reach to a certain level of success, you're always going to at least have a handful of lawsuits going at all times. And he goes, it's just the cost of doing business. He had no emotion around it. I'm sure he did maybe when he started, right? But it is what it is. And that's why I'm saying it's just there's shitty people out there and you deal with enough of them, something's going to happen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I think this goes back to the beginning where I say people start and they think it's sunshine and rainbows and I'm going to hang my shingle and I'm going to change the world. And don't lose that. Look, you guys go out there and change the world, leave your mark, but also know at the end of the day, it's not if something's going to happen, but when. End of story. Something is going to happen. You're going to have a client ask for a refund. You're going to have somebody who doesn't pay. You're going to end up seeing somebody who's trying to rip off your materials. It happens. That is the shitty underbelly of being a business owner that nobody talks about and nobody wants to deal with. And that's where I started my online business to bring that to light and to talk about that and to make it more known, because we all know it. We just don't like to face it.
Yeah. So. And putting your head in the sand is very immature and it's not going to work. And so I'm hopefully let me know, you guys. Take a screenshot right now. Tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany. Also tag Nicole at Nicole Sherry, Cheri, Oden, Oden, and share the show. Post it. So I know that you guys appreciate the way we've approached this, that at least we're entertaining you while you're learning serious shit. And let us both know if you're multitasking and you don't know, obviously Nicole's handle by heart. It's okay. I'll repost it and I'll tag her. But let us know. That'd be really helpful so that we can continue on giving you the shit you need to hear, but at least in a style that's fun. We don't have, just because it's a serious topic, we don't have to be boring in order to teach it. So you mentioned refunds. It's like we're like so aligned because you like will then say, I have like a note. I'm like, oh, I better ask her about that. And then you'll say it. So a lot of people who are private clients of mine, who are listeners. We have a lot of listeners in Canada, by the way, and all over the world. I mean, Guatemala, Israel, everywhere. But they have, because I teach a lot of passive income, right? So they have a course, they have an ebook, something like that. Talk about refunds. Like, let's say someone has, I don't know, they have a course and it's $297, right? And in order to actually like get the course, right, you have to pay through PayPal or something, $297. Now you get a link and you have a login information to access the course, for life. And if you don't have anything in writing in there discussing refunds, tell us what could happen.
Yeah, they're going to get their refund, guys. I mean, you need to be very, very clear about what your refund policy is, period, end of story. And you need to make sure that they are agreeing to that refund policy, especially through PayPal. PayPal is so consumer centered. They issue refunds like it's nobody's business. They're going to side with the consumer. That's like actually in their terms. That's who they serve. They're not out there to protect you. So you want to make sure that you've got everything lined up. You've got a clear refund policy. And even if that means no refunds, in capital, in bold, no refunds. Make sure they're agreeing to it. Make sure that you've got that clearly put everywhere so they can't say that they didn't see it. The other thing that I like to say, the flip side of the coin is no matter what, even if you have a no refund policy, you're still going to have somebody ask for a refund. And this is where it comes down to you as a business owner making a decision. Do you want to deal with a unsatisfied, unhappy client or customer who's going to go out there and leave a bad Yelp review and drag your name through the mud? Or do you just want to issue the damn refund and walk away and say lesson learned and tidy things up behind the scenes in terms of your intake process or your purchasing process? And that's a case-by-case thing, only you can decide. But the starting basis, period, end of story, should be having a very clear refund policy.
So where does this refund policy go? Because I know what a lot of business owners, online entrepreneurs think. It's like, oh my God, if for them to get even a course that's like so low ticket already, and if I have this big, scary legal document that they have to read and click, I agree, I won't get the sale. So like, where do you put this thing?
Yeah. So I'm a proponent of putting it wherever you can put it, in all honesty, because I know that people think, oh, if it's a big and scary legal document, they're not going to read it. Well, guess what? They're probably not going to read it. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I like to put it, and you'll even see on my website, I've got no refunds next to my templates. And then I've got it also in the terms of use that you agree to when you purchase it. And it's just very clear everywhere. That's my policy. And if you offer a refund policy, if you offer a 30-day policy or whatever it is, put that wherever you can put it. Put it on your products page. Put it in your terms and conditions, your terms of use, wherever you can put it. Make sure it's just very clear. Because like I said, those are the first places the court's going to look to if you get to that point of having to go through and enforce that contract.
Yeah, if you guys want to see, I mean, especially if you're in the state of California, but even if you're not, if you want to see like how Nicole has it, well, it'd be really smart to probably look at how a lawyer has created her and protected her online assets. So, go to Nicole Sherry Oden on Instagram, click the link in the bio, and just so you can get the user experience of what she's done. I mean, keep in mind, she's an attorney, so she's going to go like, to like the millionth degree with it. But my belief is like, for example, in my agreements with my private coaching clients, I don't try to bury or hide that there's no refunds. I actually have it in bold and red. Mm-hmm. Now, you know why I did that? Because, and this happened to me, even with all my business experience, this happened to me last year. I hired a specific business coach to help me with a very specific thing. And I decided that I didn't want to work with that coach because I happened to meet them at an event in person and they were not the same person they were online. And it did not feel good to me. They had buried in their agreement that there was no refunds. And it was buried. I mean, and I'm someone who now, because we all know I've paid heavily for not reading contracts word for word. I actually did, but it was so buried. And I paid through my Platinum American Express card that I've been this amazing card holder for a gazillion years or whatever. Guess what? Amex didn't give a fuck. They sided with the business, even though it was buried. So the other way around is make sure that if you're spending a lot of money, maybe have someone else review the contract. If you don't have the money to have maybe an attorney review it, have another set of eyes review it who might go, girl, did you know, like in line 52, there's 4 words right here that say no refunds under, no refunds at all. And you're like, oh my God, how did I miss that? Right?
Yeah, no, I always tell people, you want to read the small print. Look, I know it's not fun, but at the end of the day, that's your money. That's your hard-earned cash that you are handing over. It's something that you are agreeing to. You want to know what you're freaking agreeing to before you sign, before you click I agree. So take that time. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. It could be 5, depending on how long it is. Read the small print, guys. It's just so important.
I'm like mesmerized by her hair. You guys can't see her. She has like my dear friend Anna, who a lot of you guys hear me talk about. I call her, she's like a mermaid. And you have like even longer hair than her. I'm like obsessed with it. Like you'll see it. You guys will see it because we'll do all the podcast promotion. But so you have to go on my Instagram stories. I mean, she has like amazing hair. Sorry, I had to. Side note, I have like hair envy because I have extensions and my hair is like, I have like baby hair, like the hair that like every guy likes to touch, but it does nothing. And you have like amazing hair. Anyway, I digress. Everyone knows I get sidetracked. So I know this isn't your specialty in terms of trademarking and such and patents and all that, but you can speak to it. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen online. Maybe you guys have even spent money on it where someone has, I'm going to pull something out of my ass, but like, it'll be like barbells, boobs, and butts. And like, that's like the name of their, miraculous program to give you an amazing butt. And then you'll see the little like TM next to it. Like they've trademarked that name and it kind of looks impressive. Like, oh, like they've trademarked it. Like how important is it to trademark the name of your system or the name of your business?
So side note, the little TM doesn't mean that it's actually trademarked.
Oh, I didn't know.
That's putting people on notice that you intend to potentially trademark it or that you're claiming those trademark rights, but it's actually a different symbol. It's a little circle with an R in it if it's actually a registered trademark.
No way. Mm-hmm. More scandalous scams. Oh my God. Seriously. I had no idea.
Yeah. So you can put the little TM just to put people on notice that, hey, this is my shit. Don't try and infringe on it because I could be doing something with the trademarks. But unless you see that little circle with the R in it, it's not an actual registered trademark.
I'm like so enlightened right now. I'm fascinated. Okay. So how important is it for, a brand, and we're talking here, we're not talking, like Google or, Apple or something. We're talking about, not that we're all not building empires, right? But we're talking about our own thing here. How important is it to go through the process of hiring an attorney to get that actual registered trademark?
Look, I think protecting your brand, especially in today's online world, is very important. I mean, it just is. But a lot of it also depends, that attorney word, it depends on, it's a case-by-case basis. It really depends on how much effort you've put into whatever it is that you're trying to trademark. Is it your product name? Is it your business name? I always say, no matter what, when you're getting ready to name something, anything, whatever it is, you want to chat with a trademark attorney to do a little bit of a background research for you to make sure you're not infringing on anybody else's rights. Because if you start using a name, whether or not you trademark it or not, and it causes some likelihood of confusion out there in the market, you could be getting a cease and desist letter. So I always say, do your research. This is where you can Google. Do a basic Google search, see if anything pops up. Do your social media search, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever it is. but then take it a step further. And it's not typically that expensive to have a trademark attorney do kind of a trademark search for you, just to let you know. Then you at least know if you have something that's not out there that's already being used, and you can kind of make that case by case assessment. Is it something that I really want to make sure I'm getting the registered trademark for? The registered trademark gives you statutory damages. And by statutory, that means guaranteed by law, basically. So if it's something that you believe is actually going to be infringed on, it's something that's going to be out there that people are really going to try and use, that's something that you want to explore. If it's something that you're just testing the waters, you might end up changing the product name. Do you really want to spend the money going through the trademark process if you're going to end up ditching it anyways? So yeah, that it depends. Attorney answer is just kind of the guidepost.
That's a common attorney answer. The other one is when you go to court, it's like there are no guarantees in the court of law. I've heard that so many times. I love you guys. I'm one of the few people that has no hate towards attorneys. That's probably why I have so many of them as friends. Is like, you guys have saved my ass. So I don't know where that stigma comes from, but nonetheless. So I want to give you guys a couple examples of what would, in my business opinion, what would be worth your time, energy, and money to even go down this path. So like recently, I love using the Kardashians as an example because it's just amusing to me. And we both live like in the Kardashian land. So recently, the Kardashian mom, she has a registered trademark now for the term momager. And that makes sense that she did that, because that's kind of become a term that can be used. She's high profile, so a lot of people like copying their stuff. I mean, and take away the fact that they're worth a shit ton of money, but a term like that that's really clever, for example, well, it's not a great example anymore, but like Boss Babe originally, right? The originator of it was able to trademark it, but then it got removed for, I won't get into all the boring reasons, but that's another example, right? If it's something that is so clever and it's not out there, but like you could see that picking up as a trend, that would probably be something that's worth it, right?
Yeah, agreed. If it's something that's very clever that you think people are going to start using and it could potentially damage your brand, it's worth exploring.
So when you have a process or a system, so since obviously you were very familiar with Beachbody, which is registered trademark, right? Mm-hmm. But like with Beachbody, there's, I don't know if they have anything that's patent or whatever, but someone has like a unique system. Like you have a unique system to help new moms lose weight. Mm-hmm. Is there some way to protect your unique system that you've created?
Yeah, I mean, it really does depend in terms of what that system is, what it entails, and if it's really worth going through the trademark process. Because once things are copyrighted or trademarked and you've kind of got that registration in place, you can't tweak it. You can't change it because it's set on how it is. So if you've got something that's fluid, that's going to change, that you're in the experimental process with, yeah, you might want to explore potentially getting NDAs in place with everybody that you're going to be working with and chatting with to keep that idea protected. And then once you've kind of validated it and it's set, then going down that road of speaking with the trademark or patent or copyright attorney, depending on which road it is that you're going to go down. But yeah, I think it really is a case by case basis. I think that a lot of people put a lot of focus on, I'm going to run out and get this trademarked, or I'm going to run out and get this copyrighted. And they don't really think through what that means and the expense that's associated, because a lot of the times shit changes. Like it just does. It changes. It's not something that you're going to end up using. And so then you've spent all this time and all this money focusing on registering and all these things, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So you really need to, I think this is when it's smart to set up a consult with an attorney and really pick their brain. And finding an attorney, especially if you're in the online business world, that has exposure to the online business world, is really important, because the law is very slow moving, and there are a lot of small business attorneys that don't have that exposure. So that's something I always recommend. You want to ask them about their exposure to the online space. Have they worked with other online business owners? And look at their kind of breadth of experience before you retain them, because that's something that you need to kind of weigh in that process.
Now, something that's happened to me and quite a few other online entrepreneurs, that I'm friends with and associate with, is we've had our stuff ripped off. I have a client who is a graphic artist, and I mean, she has a ton of followers, but she does all the cool, like, she'll do like really cool, like, animated looking, like cartoon looking, like girl boss, pictures and stuff like that. And they're on Instagram and Pinterest, and she'll have, tons of people will share them, even use them in their feed and not credit her. Is there, is there anything she can really do about that?
So it depends. If she has if she has things copyrighted or trademarked, then she's got those statutory damages that she could fall back on if she decides to send a cease and desist letter. You can still do that even if you haven't registered things, because you can say, look, that's my material. You don't have the permission to use it. And this is another reason that I tell people, like, Google is great. We all rely on Google, but just because you find it on Google does not mean that you can fucking use it. You cannot Google and use other people's photos. You cannot Google and use other people's content and just repost it and say all is well. That's not how it works, because you are still subjecting yourself to potential copyright infringement claims. She could bring an action. It's probably going to cost a lot of money and it's going to be a lot of time. So it really depends on how the material is being used, who's using it, how it's damaging her. There's so many things that go into that consideration. Putting watermarks in photos, I think, is a great idea. Making it clear that you want that attribution, I think, is a good idea. So there are steps you can take.
Yeah, I mean, what we do now is I make sure my logo, or when I have a quote, I'm very well known for saying low self-worth equals low net worth. And there's someone well known in the online space who has used this quote even in advertising. And what I've learned from my attorney is that you actually can't copyright like a quote, so to speak. Because you can't really prove, did someone from 1920 actually, is the one who said it. You really can't do it. So what people will do is they'll take quotes. I see this with other people. They'll take someone's quote and rebrand it and use their brand colors or whatever. And they might not put their name below it, and it might not be in quotes, but they didn't fucking say it. Like maybe Oprah said it.
Yeah.
And actually there isn't much legal recourse for that.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, there's this thing called fair use in copyright law, and it looks at kind of a various litany of factors to kind of weigh into whether it's you kind of only using a portion of the material. It's not really for commercial purposes. It's different if you're just posting a graphic on your Instagram feed or to your Facebook. Are you like selling t-shirts with this shit on it and making a ton of money? Okay, then there might be recourse to try and actually follow through and go the lawsuit route. It depends.
It depends. Now we're going to play a drinking game with it. Go back. If you guys want to get drunk, go back and listen from the beginning, or go call any attorney. And every time they say it depends, have a shot. So I want to touch on employees or hiring independent contractors. Most people, and I can just say I recommend this, most people don't have employees until they've reached a certain revenue marker. They have, they're finding people on Upwork, on Fiverr, like they're contracting people. You're not like having a W-2 and having an HR policy. That's having, an employee. That's like real shit, you guys. Like that's next level. Like I would say you better regularly be bringing in, I would say, north of 500,000 a year consistently before you think of having employees. That's just my personal advice. But when it comes to contract workers, first off, I'm sure you probably have a template for this, but what's important for people when they're hiring someone off Upwork, or their cousin Sally, who's a graphic designer, and they just need like a logo done? Do you need a full like agreement for each one of these things?
Yeah. Simple answer is yeah. You want to make sure you have an independent contractor agreement in place, which is a contract that they sign basically indicating the working relationship between you guys, declaring that they're not an employee, but also outlining kind of the terms of what you expect how payment's going to be made, if it's a project by project basis, kind of outlining what that project is. You want to make sure it's very clear in terms of confidentiality. I like to tell people that if you're starting the discussions with other people about the potential hiring process, have them sign a non-disclosure agreement first before you have any discussions whatsoever about your business. There's proprietary information that we all have. I'm not talking about the general information that anybody can Google about you or look on your Instagram page for. The specific business particulars that could hurt you if somebody finds out, that are things that you don't want your competitors finding out. You want to make sure they're protected. So have that non-disclosure agreement signed, then have the discussion. And then if you choose to move forward with signing them, you have the independent contractor agreement that also has the extra confidentiality provisions in there. So it's like double ammo to say, you're going to be coming in, learning all these things about my business, my email list, my bank accounts, my anything that you may be sharing with them. They can't do shit with it. You've got that agreement, and you can take it to court if something happens.
Now, what I've had happen quite a bit recently, which I found to be interesting, is when I've wanted to hire some independent contractors for things, they've sent me an agreement, and it kind of caught me off guard. It's like, well, there's part of me, the lazy part of me, which, I embrace it. But there's a part of me that's like, oh, that's nice. It's already done for me. Right. And some of these people did a really good job and spelled out everything. And I was like, and it was sent, through like a DocuSign. It was really easy. And I was like, oh, well, then I don't have to like now go and massage my template and write all the things in. It's very adulty, very boring, very unsexy. Right. I can just use theirs. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this theirs or mine debate is a big thing. At the end of the day, the contract is not supposed to be a one-way street. A contract is a relationship with both of you. It's supposed to protect both of you. So you want to do what makes you feel comfortable. And if that's using your contract, then you can just say, hey, look, I've got my own contract. I would prefer to use mine. See what they say. If they're really, wanting to kind of use theirs, then I say that's when you take it to a small business attorney or you compare it to your template and just see what the differences are. Is it going to make a difference? Is it going to make or break the relationship? Because if you guys can't come to a meeting of the minds on the contracts, do you really want to move forward in a relationship with that person? I mean, you guys can't even get through that initial negotiation process. It's probably a big red flag that you shouldn't move forward with them as an independent contractor.
Yeah, I get why so many people, including myself, would cringe when I would hear this. And I can like feel some of you guys cringing and even like sweating and like freaking out, because this is like, it's not fun. It sounds overwhelming. And even though like we're telling you, like you can get templates for $27, you can buy a template package right from Nicole, right? Like you guys can go do that. And it's like, okay, cool. At least I know I don't have to spend a ton. But it still's like, oh my God, now I have to do all this extra stuff when I want to like hire someone to do a logo or hire, a virtual assistant. It's like, it just sounds like so much work. Well, anyone who's told you that being an entrepreneur doesn't require work is full of shit.
Yeah. And you want to remind yourself about boundaries, period, end of story. Because there is no guarantee in life that things are going to be all sunshine and rainbows. It could go south quick. And you want to make sure that you've got clearly written language that indicates what's going to happen if that happens. Because if you don't, it's going to be a bigger shit show than it otherwise would be. And avoiding that is the best step that you can take for yourself as a business owner.
For those of my listeners who, are more towards like where, the level I'm at in business, whether it's where ProjectME is at, where it's just over like $250,000 in a year, or my other business, it's a 7-figure business, they're further down in terms of revenue. Is there a certain marker of revenue that you would say like, you should invest in having more customized things versus using templates?
I don't think there's a revenue mark. I think it really depends on your business. And it depends on who you're working with in terms of, are you a big operation? Do you have employees? Do you have multiple independent contractors? Are there a lot of things going on? Are you in a heavily regulated industry? I am a huge proponent of no matter where you are in your business from day one, you really should be checking in with a small business attorney, at least on an annual basis, to do that check-in And then I think depending on how you grow and how big you get, and if you're starting to have multiple people on board, maybe looking into having your own general counsel. And that could be an offsite general counsel that you pay a monthly retainer to that can just come in and do check-ins with you and run through contracts with you. They're basically on call. It could be somebody who's actually in your business. I mean, it just depends on how big you are, how far you've grown. But having that legal advice is priceless, guys. Like I cannot stress enough, having a sounding board to just ask simple questions to is something that makes so much sense for your business. And it's a business write-off. You look at the expense and just think about how much it's going to save you when you can write it off against taxes and they've saved your ass.
And by the way, she did do it again. Hashtag, it depends. Time to drink. Whatever you're drinking, drink it. And I know some of you are drinking while listening. I know my evening listeners over their rosé. I'm down with your program. I know you. So for those of I have a ton of Canadians, a ton of people overseas who listen to the show. And I know it's probably frustrating for you guys because you're like, this is all helpful, kind of, but we're in another country. But I want to first say this, and I'm going to turn it to Nicole. Number one, if you're doing business with people in the United States, all of this applies. So if you have clients you're coaching in the United States, if you're selling ebooks, you're selling courses, you have masterminds where you have US-based clients, everything we're talking about applies. But for having them have a resource, are you familiar with anything they can Google within their own country to find a local resource? That'd be like at least a good starting point.
Yeah. I mean, if you just go to the government website for whatever country you're in, typically you can type in small business and something will pop up. Like in the United States, you can go to your Secretary of State's website and type in, business, and you'll have a whole small business, smorgasbord that pops up, and you can explore in terms of what's specific for your state. That's where I do say Google. Start big, start broad, have an idea. And then you definitely want to reach out to people that are in that field of law in your country and chat with them, because it does add a whole other layer of, I don't want to say complication, but it does make things more complicated when you've got international contracts.
Right. And the reverse is also true, you guys. Let's say you're US based. Even if you're Canada based, doesn't matter. You're working with the EU, European Union, right? Like France, England, Spain, and then there's some other thing too in there. If you're doing any business with them as of 2018, that's what Nicole was talking about earlier. You have to have special stuff in your privacy policy. I don't care who you are. Like my other business, I work with multi-billion-dollar companies. They spent a fortune having to update all their privacy policies because especially if you're doing Facebook advertising, you are putting like cookies and crawlers and all this techie stuff behind the scenes to collect data on your people. You have to disclose that now. Right? Correct.
Yeah. You actually have to have a part of your privacy policy that outlines the cookies that are on your website and like what they do and how people can opt out of them. And if you're running Google ads or Facebook ads, it's required to have a privacy policy. So this whole, do I really need a privacy policy? If you are a business owner, you need a privacy policy on your website. Period. End of story.
So if you guys liked how, Nicole and I broke a lot of this stuff down for you, where we made it at least we hope we did. We made it entertaining while we talked about something very adulty and serious. Take a screenshot right now so we know you listen. Tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany. Also tag Nicole at Nicole Sherry Oden. So it's NicoleCherryoden. If you're multitasking, you're driving, you're at your 9-to-5 job, you're blow drying your hair, whatever, and you don't have her handle memorized, that's okay. You have mine memorized, or you better. And I will then share it and I will make sure she sees it as well. But this will really help us. Like you found this to be like, okay, like it's not as scary. You guys explained it and like at least made it fun where I'm not like totally going to vomit and stick my head in the sand. Like I'm going to take some actions. At the very least, you guys, I want you to do two things. go to Nicole's Instagram, right? I just said it like 800 times. DM me if you forgot it. But go there, and I want you to click in her link in bio and go and see, like, look at her stuff as though you're, a potential client, and see all the stuff she talked about today and how she did it. Because she's doing it in the right way, at least for the US and the state of California. So you can see how she did it. The other thing I want you to do is go look at her templates and see what she's talking about, like when she's saying like you can get templates for this much. I mean, you might be able to have everything covered in under $200. So go take a look. Any questions, you guys know where you can get me. Hit me up in the DMs. And if I don't know the answer, I'll make sure that you can get in contact with Nicole. And if you're on a level where you're like, no, I get what you're saying, I don't want to pay the price like Tiffany did. Hello. I don't want to pay the price she did. I'm hearing this for a reason today. It's a sign. And you're in the state of California. Go hire Nicole. Right? You have someone here you've already heard. And if you're not in this state, I'm sure you know people you can refer them to in a lot of the other states, right?
Yeah. Shoot me a DM. If you are in a different state and you need a referral, I can reach out to my network and see if I can drum up somebody who's got experience in the online space.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on and all of your knowledge you gave us today. And that was she just gave us, a full billable hour of her time. Like, you guys just got $450 of time and knowledge and attention. So you're welcome. And a new drinking game to play. If you didn't need an excuse already. Well, thanks so much, Nicole, for all your knowledge. This was really, really great.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.